So I don't actually own an iPad, and I never have. I've never really seen the appeal, to be honest. I've always kind of had the opinion that if you own a MacBook, then the iPad is just kind of redundant for most things. But my opinion on that has now been challenged. Challenged by Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro finally coming to the iPad. Now, I've made music at home for years on my tried and trusted MacBook Pro, and I've used Logic almost exclusively for all of my music making endeavours. But Logic on the iPad has piqued my curiosity. Now that it's out, I just have so many questions about what the Logic experience is like on the iPad. And to help answer them, I'm gonna set myself a challenge. Can I make a song with predominantly real instruments, and I don't mean a loop or a beat, I mean an actual proper song, one that I'm preferably proud enough to release as a single, completely on an iPad? So record, produce, mix in 30 days, starting today. And the plan kind of is, at each stage in the process, I'll be reporting back to you guys on my progress, including what I've found really useful about the iPad experience and what I found frustrating or difficult about the iPad experience. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you can learn with me. And also observe whether I can actually make something half decent on this thing. Which I'm not completely confident I can yet, but that's all part of the fun, isn't it? Okay, let's do it. Let's get going. Oh wait, I probably need an iPad first. Hang on a minute. So I've now downloaded and installed Logic on the iPad now, and I've gone for the base model 11-inch iPad Pro with the M2 chip and the Apple Pencil, of course, not to be confused with a stylus. This is not a stylus, this is a pencil.
Oh, a stylus, right? We're gonna use a stylus. No. No. Who wants a stylus? You have to get them and put them away and you lose them, yuck.
And together, these two things came to £1,038, pretty much the same price as a laptop. Now, this is also the base model, so this has 128 gigabytes of storage. It will be interesting to see whether 128 gigabytes of storage is actually sufficient for what I'm going to do, or if it'll become a bit of a problem later down the line, given that I'm going to install some plugins, third-party plugins, and also some software instruments as well. Now, I've been playing around with Logic for about an hour or so just to understand how the UI works and just see what the changes are basically. And straight off the bat, I've already noticed some pretty stark benefits of the iPad form factor versus the traditional MacBook or Mac desktop experience. For me, making music on the traditional MacBook has two main drawbacks really. The first is the whole music making process just isn't very tactile. Guitarists still prefer actual pedals with knobs on them versus those that have digital libraries where you just sift through the different sounds. Mixing engineers on the other hand love the versatility of mixing in the box, but many still prefer the traditional mixing console because it's just hands-on. And it just gives the mixer a way more expressive way of interacting with the music. And for those of you that aren't too familiar with mixing, when people refer to in the box, it usually just means that they mix with software plugins inside the computer, as opposed to using outboard gear like a big mixing console with faders and knobs to twiddle. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos where I reacted to Apple's announcement that Logic was going to come to the iPad, link up here somewhere if you fancy checking that video out. The experience on the Mac is very removed when you're doing things like punching in beats, where you're essentially just using the tiny keys on your keyboard to do that, which just isn't a great experience. Or playing in a software instrument using Logic's virtual keyboard, I do remember way back in 2018 when Apple tried to make this experience better for musicians by essentially enabling them to use the touch bar on the old MacBooks to kind of record in those keys, which was even worse in my opinion. Those things were so goddamn small that if you had fingers wider than a Kit Kat biscuit, it was just unusable. However, all of that changes on this thing. Now you can actually play those parts on a larger, more responsive touch interface that kind of feels like a drum pad or a full-size keyboard. And it's even force sensitive, i.e. the harder you sort of press down on your keys, the more velocity the actual note will have, i.e. just like a real instrument, which is pretty insane. I'm kind of hoping there's some sort of haptic feedback in this as well. So, you get a little vibration or a click when you hit one of the keys. A bit like how the Force Touch trackpad on the MacBooks work, they're not actually physical buttons. So the second drawback I kind of see with the MacBook experience is the appeal for using it for light sessions. So I guess what I mean by that is, I've just bought this iPad, I literally just bought it. I'm now sat on my sofa, was watching a bit of TV, and I've already found myself just picking it up, playing with some of the features. I haven't really put it down, and I've even started creating little bits and bobs. I remember back to when me and my brother were younger. I was learning the guitar, he was learning drums, and I used to play my guitar all the time. And I mean all the time. Because I could be sat watching TV, having my dinner, doing a bit of homework, and it would just be there in the corner of the room. It was just so easy to just pick up and play, no matter what I was doing or where I was. But my brother didn't play his drums nearly as much, and I think that was because, he had to go and get his shoes on, find the keys to the garage, go inside the garage, put a jumper on because it was too cold in the garage, put his ear defenders on, and then start playing. Just too much friction there for a casual pick up and play. So back to the iPad then, and why I found this just so easy to pick up and play with. There is no friction in getting started with this thing. Whereas with a MacBook, particularly the 16-inch if you have a big boy one like me, it's just so heavy and clunky compared to the iPad. You've also got to fold it open, try and balance it on your knees if you're sat on a sofa, or place a pillow under it to stop your legs from going numb after sitting down for 20 minutes. It's just not that easy to kind of pick up and go with. Now, for deep working sessions, it's great. Nothing beats it. But making music isn't always a deep working session. Sometimes you just want to have a casual play and just mess about with sounds and instruments and just let your imagination run for a bit, which may or may not lead to an eventual song idea. And this iPad already makes the casual music making experience just a million times better. So I am interested actually to see over the coming weeks how often I actually pick this thing up and play with it, and how many more ideas I can come up with just by casual use. So many more videos to come in this series. This is just my initial thoughts basically. If you guys have had a chance to download Logic and have an initial play with it, please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know what your experience has been like. For me, I certainly plan to fully immerse myself in iPad land and really get into the nuts and bolts of how Logic works on this thing. So I am genuinely really keen to hear what everyone thinks about it so far. And with that said, subscribe if you're new, and make sure you turn on the notifications as well so you're kept up to date with this whole making a song on an iPad experiment. Hopefully the song isn't crap. But yeah, this is the first video in the series, so stay tuned. And if you fancy watching some more of my Apple related content, or checking out some of my other types of content like my reaction and review content, here are a few links to some videos you might want to watch next. And I hope to see you in the next one. See you later.